Hi guys, in this one we are going to create or at least begin creating a simple chat application with Django and socketio. In part 1 we are going to set up the models as well as create our first view, and then we will cover socketio basics and show you how to integrate this technology with Django. So basically at the end of this video we will already have some real-time functionality working. If you are ready, then let's get started. Alright guys, so before we get started with socketio, let's take a look at what have I done so far. And then let's also create the models that we are going to use in the next part. So first of all, I'm in the settings py file of the chat project directory. This is the project that I've set up especially for this video. And if we scroll down to the installed apps list, we will see that I added 2 applications. So I started 2 applications, chats and chat messages. Okay, so we will work on those 2 apps very soon. And then if we scroll down again, in the templates tiers, we are indicating where we are going to keep additional templates. So over here, I already placed the base HTML. And then if we scroll down, all the way down to static files, we have the static URL and static files tiers. So basically, according to those settings, I've created a static folder, and inside I placed a main.js file. So this main.js file is empty for now. The base HTML file that is in the templates directory is empty. And then in the URLs py file, I simply included the settings for the static files in the URL patterns. Okay, so now we can actually go to chats and into models py file, and let's create our first model. And before we actually do that, I just want to mention that I already created a super user. So I'm already logged into the Django administration. Okay, so now let's go back and let's create our first class, and let's call it chat. And this will inherit from models.model. Okay, and I'm just going to add one field over here, and this is going to be the room name. So this is going to be a models char field, and I'm going to set the max length to 120. All right, and then I'm going to add a string representation. So I'm going to add this str dunder method, and this will take in self, and let's return str and then self room name. Okay, so we are referring to this field over here. Okay, and then we will also need one additional method, and this is going to be a custom method, which I'm going to call get messages. And here I'm just going to put in self, and with this method we are going to retrieve all the messages. Okay, so for now I'm just going to put in pass. We will return to this method shortly, but first we actually need to save the models py file, and we need to jump into chat messages and create the chat message class in this file. So let's do this really quickly. I'm going to write a class called chat message, which of course inherits from models.model. And over here we are going to have 3 fields. So the first one is going to be chat, and this is going to be a models foreign key to the chat. Okay, so let's bring in our chat class. From chats models, we want to import chat, and let's pass it over here. And then let's specify on delete, let's just put in models cascade. And let's also set a related name, and this is going to be messages. Okay, so by this related name we are going then to retrieve the chat messages, and I'm going to show you how this will work in just a second. Okay, so as the next step, let's set up a nick as a username, or this is going to be basically the made up name of the user. So when you enter a room, you can set up a nickname or so I'm just going to put in as a shortcut Nick over here, okay? And this is going to be a models char field, all right? And let's also specify the max length to maybe 120. All right, so finally we will have a text, and this is going to be a models text field. And yeah, this is basically it. So I'm just going to put in a string representation method, and let's return, and then with the use of fstring, maybe let's put in self chat, and then we need to reference the room name. So room name, okay, because this is a foreign key to the chat, so we can access this field over here. And then I'm just going to also put in self and then Nick. Okay, so in what room, by which user a message was created. So basically this is what we did over here. So I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to return to the get messages part, because over here we need to finish working on this method. So I'm just going to put in return, and then we are going to put in self and now messages, okay, because we have a related name over here called messages, and we want to get all the messages, okay? So this way we are getting all the messages, all the chat messages that are related to a particular chat. And as we know, a chat is basically a room, all right? So let's go ahead and save this, and we need to register the chat and the chat messages in the admin. So in order to do this, let's jump first of all into chat's application to the admin py file, and let's go to from.models. We want to import chat, and then below we want to write admin site register, and we can pass in the chat. Okay, so this way we should see this chat in the admin. Let's save this, and let's do the same for chat messages. So let's go to models py, not models py, sorry guys, into admin, and over here from .models we want to import chat message, and then let's just put admin site and register, and we need to pass in, of course, the chat message. So let's go ahead and save this. Let's go to the terminal, and as you can see, I have two windows of terminal open, and I'm going to explain why it is very soon. For now, let's quit the development server from running, and let's run the migrations. Python manage py make migrations. All right, and Python manage py migrate, and Python manage py run server. Okay, so let's now go to the admin, hit refresh, and we see the chats and the chat messages. All right, so for now we are done. We are going to use those models in the next part, and it's actually time to proceed and work on the socketio. So this is why I added this additional window over here, and what I'm going to do is to access the virtual environment folder, the virtual environment directory. All right, and over here I'm going to make another directory. So first let's list out what do we have over here. Okay, so here's our source folder in which we are working, as you can see, in Visual Studio Code. So next to it, let's create an additional directory. So I'm going to name it maybe server, all right? And then I'm going to access server, and here I'm going to create a server.js file. Okay, and now with npm init, we are going to set up a new npm package. So let's put in npm and then init. Okay, so I'm just going to type enter. I'm not going to worry about those settings, And over here, let me just bring this a little bit higher. I just typed yes. Okay, so right now, if we list out the elements, we also see the package JSON. Okay, and the first package that we are going to install is Nodemon. So with Nodemon, our app is going to be restarted automatically after applying changes. And we will see how this works a little bit later. For now, we are going to install Nodemon, and then we are going to install socketio. So let's write npm install, and then let's add G. So we are going to install it globally, Nodemon. And let's wait a few seconds. Okay, so we have several errors over here. And I'm going to try this with sudo npm install G and Nodemon. Okay, it seemed to work. And as mentioned before, let's now install socketio. So npm install and then socketio. Okay, and also let's wait a few seconds. All right, what I'm going to do is to write code space dot to open Visual Studio Code. So now we will have Visual Studio Code for our Django application and for working on the Node.js server. And before we get started with coding in this file, I just want to mention that this library is a learning experience for me as well. So I'm not an expert here, but I want to show you guys my approach to this topic, which is creating a real-time chat app, not using Django channels. And in this part, we won't be able to save the messages to the database. Instead, we are going to focus on displaying the messages in a room, in a browser, with no history, but in real time. And I want to get you guys excited, so the basic theory I'm going to leave for the next part. However, if this is essential for you guys, apart from the socketio documentation, you can read a great article on socketio and WebSockets and what are the difference between those two. So the link to this article is placed on the blog. And we also need to remember to create our view in Django, register it, and take care of the template. So we need to bring in the base HTML also from the blog. And also we need to create our main HTML. Okay, so here is the link to this article. And here is our base HTML. So I'm just going to copy it. And then I'm going to put it into the base HTML. All right, so this part is extremely important. Okay, so this is the CDN to the socketio. All right, without this script, this won't work. Okay, so let's go ahead and save the base HTML, and let's go to, yeah, maybe we can go directly to the chat project. And over here, let's just create a new file called views.py. And first of all, let's bring in the render method. So from Django shortcuts, we want to import render. And then let's create this main view. So let's put in main view, which takes in a request. And then let's return render. Let's pass in the request. Let's put in main HTML, and this is the template that we are going to create in a second. And let's put in an empty dictionary because we don't want to pass anything to the template. So let's go ahead and save this. And now we can jump into the urls.py file. Let's bring in the main view. So from .views, we want to import main view. And let's simply register it as the main path. Main view. And the name is going to be main. Okay. So I'm going to save this, and the one step missing is to create the main HTML. So let's do it also directly, at least for now, in the templates folder, so it will be placed next to the base HTML file. And in order to make this a little bit readable, this is why I brought base HTML, and we are going to inherit right now from base HTML. So let's put in extends base HTML, and let's take a look at what blocks do we have over here. We have a block title, a block content, and block scripts. All right. So let's put in block title. I'm just going to put in main view or main page, block content, and here let's just put in hello world. Okay, and then we have block scripts. Okay, so over here we need to link up our main.js, and in order to do this we need to simply first load static. This is the first step, and then over here let's put in script src is equal to, and then we need to refer to static. So let's put in static and then main.js like this. Okay, and let's close off the script tag. All right, so hopefully this should be working, and we are going to test this out in just a second. For now, I'm going to save the main HTML, and I'm going to jump into main.js just to console log over here hello world. Okay, so we will see if this is linked up correctly or not. So now I'm going to go to the URL on which our development server runs, and I'm going to hit refresh, and we see hello world, and then let's right click inspect, and then let's go to the console, and we see hello world. All right, so basically this is working, and having this ready, having this working, we can now focus on the socketio. So let's just go to the official documentation, to the introduction, and over here we know that we can read that socketio is a library, is a JavaScript library that enables real-time, bidirectional, and event-based communication between the browser and the server. And we are going to see this in just a second, okay? It's very important, event-based communication between the browser and the server, bidirectional and real time. And it consists of a Node.js server, which we are going to create. And this is what we are going to do right now. And a JavaScript client library for the browser, which can also be run from Node.js. All right, so now let's focus on creating the Node.js server. All right, so let's go to not the main.js, but the server.js, okay? And over here, we are going to bring in, first of all, the HTTP module, because we will need it to create an HTTP server, okay? So let's write const HTTP is equal to, and then require, and then let's pass in HTTP, just like this, okay? And now, using the create server method, we will simply do that. We will simply create a server, okay? So let's write const server is equal to HTTP, and then HTTP, sorry. And right now we are going to put in create server, just like this. All right, so we're almost there, but we still need socketio. And if we go to the package JSON, to the dependencies, we can see that we have it already installed. So we can actually use it. So on the server side, we have it installed. And on the client side, we have it in the base HTML in the CDN. Okay, so we will return to this a little bit later. For now, let's focus on the server.js. So I'm going to create another variable called socket IO like this. And here I'm just going to put in require and socket IO. All right. So we'll need another variable const IO, which is going to be equals socket IO. And now we are going to pass in the server, and we are going to set some properties related to cross-origin resource sharing. Okay, so CORS enables us to safely execute HTTP cross-origin requests, and I'm going to put in CORS, and here I'm going to specify the origin, and this is going to be basically where our development server is running. So let's just grab this. Okay, and let's put it over here, and then we can also specify the methods, and I'm just going to put in get and post. All right, so as the final step related to setting up the server and the foundations for real-time events, real-time communication, let's create a listener on a particular port, okay, on port 8000 to be more precise. So we need to put in server listen and then 8000, so this is the port, and we will have an arrow function, okay, an callback arrow function where we are going to console log, and let's just put in listening on port 8000. Okay, so yeah, let's go ahead and save the server.js file, and with the use of node daemon or nodemon, I really don't know what's the correct pronunciation. I like to call it node daemon. I think it's a little bit more cooler, but it might not be correct. So I'm just going to write nodemon server.js. Okay, and we have listening on port 8000. Brilliant. Okay, so it's time to establish a connection. So we need to listen on an event for connecting to the server, okay? And we will do this with this IO variable. So let's write IO and then on connection. We are going to grab a socket and we will return to this what a socket is, okay? We will talk about this very soon, but for now, let's just console log connected. Okay. And then we need to remember to open the connection on the client as well. So let's go to main.js. And over here, let's create a socket variable. And this is going to be IO. And this IO we are getting from the CDN that I showed you already. So the one in the base HTML, okay? And here, let's put in HTTP local host 8000, local host 8000, okay? So this should now work, all right? So I'm going to save this and then I'm going to hit refresh, okay? And right now we see connected, okay? We don't see it over here, all right? Because on the client, we didn't do anything basically, but on the server side, we have this connected. So writing IO on connection on the server, and then with this const socket where we are using IO and where we are passing HTTP localhost 8000, we are establishing a connection. So this is the first step, okay? And as the next step, we can actually talk about this socket, okay? So a socket is nothing else but a connection, okay? So it's a connection by a user and it has its ID. And with console log, we can actually display this ID, and this will show the ID of the user every time there will be a connection. Okay, so let's do this. Let's go to line 15 and let's console log. And here I'm going to put in socket and then .id like this. And now I'm going to save this. And actually we don't need to refresh because we already see the ID. With Node daemon we already have this restarted, okay? But if we will go to another window and hit enter over here, now, as you can see, we have two IDs, okay? So those IDs can indicate different users, okay? So right now, we can actually create a room, and for this part, this room will be set as a fixed room, okay? We will, in the next part, change this, but let's go somewhere over here, and let's create a new const. And this is going to be named room, and I'm just going to name this room as test room. Okay, so right now we can join this room, and we will need to do it in this block where we are establishing the connection. So let's write socket and then join and room. Okay, so now we joined the room, and we can send to all the users when a user joins a notification. And for this we need to write IO and then we need to pass in the room and then emit. And over here we need to specify the name of the event, so I'm just going to put in welcome. All right, and then I'm just going to put in the notification, the message. So we will put in a new user entered the chat, something like this. All right, so in order for this to work, we'll also need to put in some code inside of the main.js file. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to save the server.js, and then we'll simply go to the main.js, and then we are going to write socket and then on the welcome we are going to grab the message. Okay, so the message in this case is this: a new user entered the chat. Okay, so this is the message. So here we are going to console log this message. All right, and let's see how this works. So I'm going to right click inspect. I'm going to go to the console. All right, so right now, once I refresh, we should actually see a new user entered the chat. Okay, and then if I type enter over here, we have a new user entered the chat, but here we have 2 times a new user entered the chat. Okay, because we were the first user, so we got this notification. Then the new user entered the chat in the next window. Okay, so it has been added over here. So this is how we would do this in case of sending this notification to all the users, including ourselves. And if we would like to send it to all the users but not ourselves, we would do this a little bit differently. So what I'm going to do is to provide this solution below. So here we will begin with socket and then broadcast. I'm hopefully spelling this correctly, and then emit. And this time I'm going to name this welcome to, and here I'm going to put in a new user entered the chat and something like this. Okay, so this is going to be the message. So now I'm going to save this. And okay, so here we have some issue. So, okay, I spelled it the wrong way. Socket broadcast. Okay, so hopefully now it will be all right. Let me refresh. Okay, and we have a new user entered the chat. We don't see the one with the exclamation marks. Okay, but then if I refresh over here, we have a new user entered the chat, but in the previous window, we don't have actually. And we should have a new user entered the chat. And the reason why we don't have it is because we forgot to take care of the client side, because we did it only on the server side. So right now, it's actually good that we don't see anything, because it's an opportunity to explain this in a little bit better way. So now I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it, and now we are dealing with the welcome to. Okay, so in case of welcome to, the message is going to be a new user entered the chat. All right, so basically if we save the main.js file, now everything should be working. So here we see a new user entered the chat. Okay, we don't see this, and this is all right, because over here we should be sending this notification to all the users, but not ourselves. This one we are sending to all the users, including ourselves. Okay, so we have a new user entered the chat, and then if we refresh over here, we have a new user entered the chat. But if we go to the previous window, we have a new user entered the chat. All right, so this is how it's working. And then if I would go over here and press enter, over here we should see a new user entered the chat, and here we should see a new user entered the chat. Okay, so this is how it's working. Okay, so over here we can see that we have two notifications, that two users entered the chat, and this is the first one and this is the second one. But the user working in this window isn't included in this. Okay, so as the next step, we can actually go to the main.js, and here we will do some additional coding, but for now we need to focus on the template related to main.js. So I'm talking about the main HTML. We need to do some coding over here in order to grab the elements that we are going to put in the main HTML. And what we are going to do is to create an input and a button, and then we are going to listen on a click event, and basically we are going to grab a message and send it to all the users in the room. Okay, so in order to get started on this, we need to access the main HTML. Over here, let's get rid of this hello world, and let's start by putting an alert box. So in the alert box, we will see the notification that a user has joined a room, or we will also add later a notification when a user leaves a room. Okay, so let's create a div with an ID called alert box, and let's close off this div. So this is the first step. Let's also add a div with an ID messages box. So over here we are going to not create but keep all the messages. Okay, so this is where we are going to display the messages, and then we are going to have an input, and then type is going to be text. Later we will change this into a form when we are actually going to send the data to our Django database. All right, but for now, let's do this just with a simple input and a simple button. So this is going to be ID message input. Let's add a class equal to form control. Okay, so we have Bootstrap included in the base HTML. Okay, it's over here, and I'm using a Bootstrap class right now. And maybe let's also add a placeholder, and this is going to be your message, something like this. All right, and below we are going to put a button as mentioned before, and this is going to be a button with a class equal to, and then again we are going to use bootstrap, so btn primary, and we are going to add a margin top 2, and we will need an ID, so this is going to be a send btn, and let's put in just send, and let's close off the button. All right, so now we can actually go ahead and save this main HTML, and we can go to our main.js and grab those elements. So over here I made a mistake, it should be alert box. So we need to grab the alert box, the messages box, the message input, and the send btn. Okay, so let's do this. Below the socket variable, let's create another one called alert box, and this is going to be equal document get element by ID, and here we are going to put in alert box. Okay, and then we are going to have the messages box, so const messages box is equal to document and then get element by ID, and let's put in messages box just like this. What else do we have? The message input. Okay, so this is the next step. Message input is equal to document get element by ID message input. So if you watched my JavaScript tutorials with Django, this shouldn't be new to you. Okay, and then let's put in const send btn is equal to, and then document get element by ID, and let's put in send btn just like this. All right, so before we start working with alerts, let's listen on the click event for the send btn. Okay, so let's do this below the socket on welcome to. So let's put in send btn and then add event listener. Let's put in click, and then let's just see if everything is working. I'm just going to put in console log clicked like this. All right, so I'm going to save this. I'm going to hit refresh. Okay, so here is our input, here is our placeholder, your message is the placeholder, and then if I simply click the button, we see clicked. Okay, so everything is working. So as the next step, what we are going to do is to grab the value of the input. So in order to do this, inside of this send btn add event listener, where we are listening on the click event, we are going to create another variable, and this variable is going to be called message, and this is going to be equal message input dot value like this. And then below, what we are going to do is to simply console log the message. All right, so now let's see what do we have over here. So I'm going to put in test send, and we see test. Okay, so as the next step, let's put in test 2 send, and we see test 2. All right, so from here now, let's write socket emit. All right, and let's name this message. Okay, so please notice that over here we were using emit on the server side. So now we are doing this on the client side. So here we are emitting message, and we are going to pass in the message. And now what we are going to do on the server is to simply listen on the message, okay, on the message event. So let's do this below. So I'm going to put in socket and then on message. Okay, we are going to have a message, and here let's console log the message. Okay, so let's see how this will work. So I'm just going to hit refresh, and I'm going to put in my message. I'm going to press send. We see my message over here because we have it as console log message, but then over here in the terminal, we also see my message. Okay, so this is basically working. However, we won't see this if you take a look at this my message. If we hit refresh over here, I'm going to put in new message. I'm going to put in send. We see new message here, but we don't see it over here. So I see my message here, but I don't see it over here. Over here I see new message. All right, so as the next step, we actually need to send this message from the server side to all the users that are in a particular room. Okay, and in order to do this, I'm going to write io2, and then I'm going to pass in the room, and then emit room.emit like this, and then I'm going to name a new event called message to clients, maybe something like this, and then I'm going to pass in this message. All right, so now if we go back to our main.js, we can actually now listen on this message to clients event. And let's do this. Let's do this below the send btn. Okay, so let's put in socket and then on. Let's put in message. Actually, I'm going to copy this because I'm afraid that I will make a mistake. So I'm just going to put in, I'm just going to do a copy paste operation, and then we will have the message. And then over here, we are going to console log the message. So basically, if this will work, what this will do is if we type new message over here, we should see it in other windows. All right, so let me just refresh this, and let's now type new message, sent. We see new message over here, and then we see new message over here as well. And if we right click inspect, we'll go to the console. We see new message. Hi there. Send. We see hi there over here. Okay, we see it 2 times, so we'll investigate this soon. And then we see hi there as well, and hi there over here as well. Okay, so this is working, and we will find out if this is working in the correct way very soon, because we will soon actually display the messages. But before we do this, I would like to go back to our notifications when a user entered the chat, and let's add another one when the user leaves the chat, and then let's display the notification in the alert box that we already created. Okay, so in order to do this, first of all, let's get rid of this socket on welcome. I'm just actually going to comment it out. We are going to use this welcome to, where we are going to send the notification to all the users but not to ourselves. Okay, so we will have, when we enter the room, we won't see a new user entered the chat. All the other users that are already in that room will see it. Okay, so I'm just going to comment this out. And as the next step in the main.js, we are going to create an arrow function called handle alerts. So when a user joins a chat room, we are going to see a blue notification with the primary class. And when a user leaves the chat, we will see a red notification, okay? And when a user joins, we will see a different message than when the user leaves. So this is obvious, okay? So I'm telling you this because now this handle alerts function will take in a message, but also a type, okay? And over here, let's refer to the alert box inner HTML. And with the use of backticks, we are now going to add a bootstrap alert. So this is going to be div with a class equal to, and then alert and alert type. And now we are going to inject the type over here. Okay. And then we are going to put in the role is equal to alert, just like this. And let's close off the div. And inside we are going to place nothing else but the message. All right. So maybe we also want this alert box to disappear after approximately 2 or 3 seconds. So let's do set timeout. Okay. And then we simply need to refer to the alert box inside of the set timeout in order to reset it. Alert box in our HTML, and just let's do it like this. All right. And also what we can do is to go to this send btn add event listener, and we can also reset the message input. Okay. So I'm just going to copy this, and then message input value is equal to blank. So the message input will be resetted. So let's see how this will work. So right now we don't see anything, but then if I hit refresh over here, we actually don't see anything. And this is because this is obvious. We didn't use this handle alerts anywhere. So what I'm going to do is to bring it first of all to this welcome event. So handle alerts, and over here we are going to put in the message that we are having from over here, and then let's also put in primary. So this is the message coming from over here. This handle alerts takes in the message and takes in the type. So the type is primary, and this will give us the blue alert. So let's save this and let's try it out again. Okay, I'm going to hit refresh, and then we don't see it again, and I'm just wondering why. So we see it over here. A new user entered the chat, and we don't see it above the input. So let me just, maybe instead of console log hello world, I'm going to grab this console log and I'm going to put it below the alert box in order to console log the alert box. Okay, so let's see, what do we have over here? So we actually grab this element correctly. Okay, so if I put in over here alert box inner HTML is equal to hello world, and let's do it in bolded. Let's hit refresh and we see hello world. Okay, so this is working. So something must be wrong over here. We have this handle alerts, we have alert box inner HTML, we have a div with a class equal to alert, and then alert type. The role is alert. We are passing the message. Then we have set timeout, and of course here I should put in the time. So after 2 seconds, we want this to be resetted. Okay, so probably this was the issue. Sorry about this, guys. Let's try it out again. And there it is. A new user entered the chat. Okay, so if I do it over here, we have, let me do this maybe not 2 seconds, but 5 seconds. Okay, so let's hit refresh. Okay, let's do it over here. Okay, we have a new user entered the chat. So this is working. Okay, so if you join the chat room, you won't see this notification, but other people in this chat room will. Okay, so this is for joining. This is for joining the room. So as the next step, let's do it for leaving the room. So we actually need to go back to our server and we need another event on disconnect. Okay, so let's do this. Socket on and then disconnect. Okay, here we will have an arrow callback, arrow function, and we will do IO to room, and then emit. Bye bye will be the event, and the message will be a user has left the chat. Okay, so now let's save this and let's do this as we did with the welcome to. So I'm just going to copy this. Over here we can actually get rid of this console log message. Let's just keep it like this, and below we can put a bye bye. So the same thing when a user leaves. However, we need to change welcome to bye bye, and then handle alerts, and we need to change primary to danger. Okay, so now I'm going to save this. I'm going to refresh, and then I'm just going to leave this window. So this user should see a notification, a red notification that a user has left the chat. And we have a user has left the chat and a user has left the chat. Okay, and after 5 seconds it is gone. Okay, so it's time to go back to our send btn add event listener click. Okay, so as a short recap, we are creating an event over here called message. We are passing the message. So every time the button is clicked, we are getting the message input value. We are then resetting the input. And here in this socket emit, as mentioned before, we are creating an event and we are sending the message. So on the server side, we are listening on the message event. We are taking this message and we are simply console logging it. And so we are console logging it over here. And then we are basically grabbing this message and sending it to all the users in a room in a new event called message to clients. Okay, so if we go back to main.js, we have this listener on the message to clients, and right now we are just console logging the message. So as a short recap, let's put in my message. We see my message. Over here we see my message, and then if we go to the server, we also see my message. Okay, so it's time to actually add this message to the messages box. Okay, and this is going to be really simple. So in order to do this, we are going to go to the socket on message to clients, and here we are going to refer to the messages box and then inner HTML, and we are going to use backticks over here. So maybe in bolded font. Let's inject the message that we have over here, okay? And then let's maybe add a break line. All right, so let's see if this will work. Let's refresh this a couple of times. So we see a notification, okay? So here we also see a notification, all right? And let's write something. Hi, guys. Let's press send and we see hi, guys. We see hi, guys. We see hi, guys. We see hi, guys. And then if we put in over here, hello, and let's press send, we see hello, 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 okay? So over here, this message input hasn't been resetted, and it should be not message value, it should be message input value. Okay, so sorry about this, guys. And let's try this one more time. So let me just refresh the page. And let's write hello. And we see hello, and the input is now resetted, okay? Hello world. We see hello world, okay? And let's put in bye-bye. And let's disconnect. So we have a user has left the chat, but we see bye-bye, all right? So this is working, and those were the basics of socketio. This is not the full integration with Django, but this just gives you an idea how to create. This hopefully gives you an idea how to create a real-time application in a pretty easy way. As you can see, so far we didn't cover anything that difficult. So if you've seen my Django and JavaScript tutorial series, you should be able to follow along and you should be able to understand what is going on. So the next part will be a little bit more difficult. However, it will show the full integration with Django, and we will be using some additional packages in order to do this. But for now, I just want to say thank you guys for watching. Sorry about the stupid mistakes. I'm really busy lately. And yeah, I'm working like 14 hours a day, and I simply need to rest at least one day. But this is my problem, not yours. All right, guys. So once again, thank you so much and see you soon. Have a great day and bye-bye.